Well, here are some interesting statistics. Everton have lost 5 out of 7 with David Unsworth in caretaker charge, conceding at least 2 in those 7 games and 9 in the last 2 games. Paul, did they have to do something, or do they have to do something now?
They have to do something. I mean, if you watch the last couple of weeks and watch yesterday, it was poor. And, you know, to go and call on Sam Allardyce, they're in trouble. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I just think with Sam, who's already said he was out of the job, now they're coming back and saying, virtually, please, will you take the job? Because we're in trouble. You know, and this is a big football club. And if you look at their team at the moment, it deserves to be where they are. You know, and I've played a long time ago. I never see Everton teams do what they did the last couple of weeks. I've never, ever seen that. I can't, from the day I started watching football on TV to now, this is the first time I've ever seen an Everton team. And I'm going to go lie down. I'm going to say lie down. Lie down and get beat and just accept it,
I think David Unsworth looked like he needed a lie down after.
Yeah, I feel for David. I feel David.
Do you feel for him? Because you've been in that position rather recently, though, with different results.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult situation to be in at times. There's no doubt about that. I think, obviously, with David initially sort of coming out and saying what wanted the job, probably made it that little bit more difficult in the period that he's had, because there's almost a double pressure. There's that ultimate pressure on the result for him to try and get the job for himself. But, you know, the point Mercer's saying about the timing of Sam coming in, December's a massive month, a massive, massive month. There's so many games so through December, and obviously going into the new year, there's a hell of a lot of points to play for. And if they don't start picking up points, obviously it's going to make the task doubly difficult.
Let me throw this into the mix, Jason. Sky Sources telling me this second that Paulo Fonseca of Shakhtar Donetsk is also being considered and is going to be interviewed, and so too Martin O'Neill, and that Farhad Moshiri is leading the search. What do you make of all that?
Fonseca is really highly rated. I mean, he's done very, very well with Shakhtar, and I know he wants a job in England. He's been put himself out there in terms of actually getting a job in England. But what will happen there, I think, is you'll look at Fonseca, you look at O'Neill, and you look at Allardyce, and the situation that Everton are in at the moment, perhaps Allardyce is the safest bet straight away because they are in a relegation battle. O'Neill, it's been a while since he's obviously worked in club management. But I think Everton were quite determined to have a shortlist and not just have it all about one manager. And actually, the problem they've got with Sam Allardyce is they've gone back to him 2 weeks after he said he doesn't want the job, or he won't take the job under the circumstances in which they were offering it to him, or potentially offering it to him. So his bargaining powers massively increased in the last couple of weeks. So they probably don't want to have talks with him being the only person they're talking to.
Could this just be about bargaining power, do you think?
What was interesting was when I spoke to people tonight, they were saying, yes, they've made contact, yes, they will talk to him, but it's not done yet. So I think they were trying to sort of have a bit of caution around it, but I also think they're a bit worried that actually it's like Sam Allardyce or no one, and I don't think they want that situation. To be fair to Farhad Moshiri, he did say at the end of last week there will be a shortlist of 3, and that shortlist does now seem to be coming out.
For you, Michael, having been that caretaker manager, you talked about David Unsworth saying that he wanted the job. You went a completely opposite way, didn't you?
I did, well, lots of reasons, really. I think from a respectful point of view, at the end of the day, Craig had brought me in the summer to be his assistant, and obviously he's someone who I've worked with in the past. And because of the length of time, that was one issue. It wasn't right to all of a sudden throw myself into the hat for the job, because I'd only been at the football club a couple of months. And I think, obviously, when you're put into that situation as well, you've got to play the game as such with the players as well, because, you know, they're looking at you to try and steer the ship for whether it's a short period of time or a slightly more lengthy period of time. And I wanted to make the players a little bit more relaxed than obviously the situation is when you lose your manager. So we went into the 2 games that I took, and we were dead positive. You know, we tried to sort of get the frustrations and the disappointment of losing the manager, because they lost someone who they respected for a long, long time. He'd been at the football for a long, long time, and a lot of staff at the football club had knew him and liked him, and seen him as a friend as well as a colleague. So from my point of view, it was actually easier than what probably some people would think. But again, I go back to it. I think with David coming out and saying as early as he did that he was up for the job and wanted the job, I think that put that little bit more added pressure on it.
I think they also wanted him to succeed. I mean, I think that's partly why they gave him. I think the idea was that hopefully he would succeed till the summer, and then they could reassess then and perhaps.
Whose idea was that?
I think it was Bill Kenwright's idea.
Because that's been the confusion, isn't it? Who's having these ideas?
And well, this is the big question about Everton: is who's calling the shots, isn't it? I mean, you've got the majority shareholder Fahad Moshiri, and you've got the chairman Bill Kenwright working in partnership. Sometimes those things don't always work ultimately, do they? Somebody will have to make the final decision. It seems to be Moshiri's leading the hunt for the next manager, but I think Kenwright was sort of going into bat for Unsworth, coming through the under-23 coach, former player. I think it was a romantic idea as well. But you can understand it, having that succession plan in place to have somebody like Unsworth take over, but it was just a step too far for him in the current circumstances.
And he knew the players as well, you know, like you say, he's been at the football club a long time as the under-23 coach.
Can that work against you? Could they take advantage of that situation?
Possibly, but, you know, I think a lot of the stuff that was coming out from the players at the time as well backed up what he was saying. I think a lot of the players generally, you know, wanted him to get the job, and that surely has got to work in your favour. I'll give you, you know, something, whether it be obviously confidence from the board point of view or not.
If that's your shortlist now, Sam Allardyce, Paulo Fonseca, Martin O'Neill, who'd you be looking at?
I've got to give it to Sam. I think they're in trouble. I think you've got to give it to Sam Allardyce. The lad at Shakhtar, I mean, he's supposed to be very good, but the lad at Moscow was very good, and look where Hull are at the moment. It takes time, you know, and he probably will succeed at Hull, but, you know, he's going to need time to do that. Everton haven't got any time. You know, Martin's been out of football, day-to-day football for a long time. You know, Sam keeps you up. In my opinion, Sam keeps you up, and I think I think any other team down the bottom at the moment will be sitting there thinking, I hope they don't get Sam Allardyce. Because I think then you just scrub them out. I think you just scrub them out of a relegation battle.
I mean, I can't speak in terms of Fonseca in terms of his personality, but certainly, you know, with Sam Allardyce and Martin O'Neill, you've got two big characters there with great personality who can take on a club the size of Everton. But
you've also got three. I mean, this is what really drives me crazy about football clubs, to be honest with you. You've got three very different managers in many ways. I mean, Martin O'Neill, Sam Allardyce, you could say the style of football is sort of similar, but they're very different characters. So you've got three different characters on an apparent shortlist, all managing in different ways. And it's almost like, who's available? Who can we get? And I just find sometimes the planning at football clubs is kind of crazy, because they sack Koeman, and we're in week 5 since they sacked Koeman. Would they have been any worse if they had kept Koeman and actually worked out what they're going to do in terms of getting somebody in place? And people say, oh, it's disrespectful to go behind the manager's back and talk to the other managers. But actually, it makes sense. I mean, why can't you have somebody in place to take over from the manager you're going to get rid of? I know it sounds brutal, but you're working in quite a brutal business. And other clubs do it. And I think they seem to start from a starting point of like, we've sacked him, now what do we do? And that just seems to me negligent.
On that point, Jason, Paul, would they be in a worse position had they kept Ronald Koeman now?
It's hard to see.
It is hard to say. I only know one thing. They wouldn't have come back against Watford, so they'd have been 3 points worse off than what he might have got results at other games. But when they were 2-0 down that day, I don't think that team was coming back that day. And that's why I think Bill Kenwright looked at the David Unsworth thing and thought, you know, this is it. You know, we Everton man through and through. Look at the crowd were together. No one went home that day, and you know, we got the result, and it hasn't worked out. But I'm with Jason as well. You've got 3 completely different managers. I can understand if they're all the same manager, all the same, and then we've got to pick one from the other. They're completely different managers, and the problem I have with the lad from Shakhtar is, as Michael said, December's massive. There's just so many games. What, 7, 8, 9, 8 games or something like that? I mean, you've only got to do what Palace did at the start of the season. You're in major trouble, and the games come thick and fast. And for me, I think they need to. Again, 5 weeks ago, 5 weeks. I mean, not having a manager in place in this day and age with the amount of money in football, and you know. For me, I think it's very poor.
Give us an insight into the manager's thinking, Michael. If Sam has walked away from this opportunity already and now he hears that there are 2 other strong candidates in there, what's that likely to make him think now?
Well, I think obviously he's still got a strong hand, you know. Ultimately, you know, it was Everton who come to him in the first place. And for them to come back again, I think Jason's already touched on it. You know, he's in a really strong position at this minute, and I would imagine that that he would probably only take the job if it was on his terms. I mean, obviously, I don't know the conversations that are going to take place, but for a club to come back into your second time where you've made it pretty clear that, you know, you wasn't going to work on the terms that were put in front of you initially, surely, you know, I think he'll go into it quite confident.
Final point on Sam Allardyce, and the question we posed right at the start was this the best job potentially that he's ever had in terms of club management?
Club management, without a doubt. In my opinion, I think, you know, as Michael said, these are always going to be always going to be seventh, and you never know. They just need someone who's going to push them in and try and get in the 6 or even in the 4. You know, but massive job, great crowd, always packed. Just waiting to happen again.
I think to be fair to him, that's why he wants a longer contract.
Oh, you've got to have a longer contract.
He doesn't want to just go there to the end of the season because,
No.
as Merce says, he's going to have maybe 2 years' time. You know, Everton could be in an incredible situation with the money they're talking about spending. You just keep them up this season and then you sort of try and sort it out next summer. And absolutely, this will be the strongest situation he's been in then as a club manager ever, with the amount of money available to him to spend and maybe have a tilt at the top.
I think obviously the players that play a massive key on the success of, you know, any manager up and down the country, whether it's working in the League Two or Premier League. But I think obviously from a fan's perspective as well, if Sam Allardyce probably did, you know, come to the football club, I think that they would certainly play their part. I think they would, because I think they get behind the team, which has been difficult for them over recent weeks, and he would certainly bring that vibe and the atmosphere back to Goodison Park. You know, we were talking about before how passionate that place can be and how intimidating that place can be, and it doesn't look as if it's been that case this year.